and welcome to the, what is the date today, 19th Scarborough Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Loizao?
Here.
Mr. Crockett?
Here.
Mr. Stark? Mr. Maroon?
Here.
Mr. Richard?
Here.
Mr. Stanhope?
Here.
Mr. Massissa?
Okay, very good. This meeting was supposed to be on January 14th. It's been moved, it was moved to the 19th this month.
February 11th.
I'm sorry, February 11th. That's right. Oh, no, that's right. Thank you. February 11th.
That's your minutes.
My old minutes. And so we're back. There's one item, 2539, which has been tabled till the next month and will be first on the agenda, provided there's nothing being held over on this meeting. So why don't we start off with Pledge Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to appoint Mr. Stanhope to be a voting member tonight. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, we have 5 members here today, so that's good. Why don't we start right off, if you could, thank you very much. Yeah, approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion on the minutes?
Motion to approve minutes as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? That's 4 and 1 abstention. Okay, let's come right back to the 2538. Okay, it's appeal number 2538, a practical difficulty variance by Kevin Coyne, 60 Ocean Avenue, Assessors Map U2, Parcel 181. We have a representative, or if you could state your name and address, and we'll go from there.
My name's Kevin Coyne, 60 Ocean Avenue, Scarborough.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Coyne, if you would like to explain what you're trying to accomplish, and we'll go from there.
Okay. I have a camp at Higgins Beach that I've owned since 1992, and it's on a non-conforming lot where one side of the lot is about 30 feet deep. I'm also on a septic, so I have a 40-foot setback requirement. So what I'm asking for is a variance on the front side and the back side.
And what are you trying to accomplish?
The goal of the project is to tear down the structure and replace it with a 2-story or 2.5-story structure on the same footprint.
So you're taking the exact same footprint?
Yep.
And have you had a chance to look at the plans? So it's the exact same footprint, you're just going up a story, and
On that.
the reason you're tearing it down is because it's...
Yeah, it was built in 1900, and it was built on the ground. Most places are built on cedar post. This place was built right on the ground. So I have problems with rotting floors, joists. So most people, your windowsills rot, my floors rot out. So,
okay.
It's not fully insulated for the Maine winters. It's a dated structure, and it doesn't really fit in the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you.
But I also would like to mention I've tried to include a 16 by 20 garage that meets the side setback. It would have the same setback requirements, or the drop back from the limiting reduction, or what would you call it?
It's a side setback.
The side setback will be met, but the front won't, and the back. So, you can see that. It'll be like 6 feet 11 from the back property line on the one corner.
And the reason you're not attaching it to the building is?
Just to keep it separate, I don't know, just character, but I'm open to what's available. If it's easier to have it attached, I'd attach it, it's no problem.
Okay. Do we have any letters? Anything on this? Could you give us an overview, please?
Excuse me?
Would you like to give an overview?
An overview? Yes, I can give you an overview.
Town's perspective?
Mr. Coyne is applying for a practical difficulty variance because his property is not impacted by shoreline zoning or floodplain, so he is eligible for a practical difficulty variance rather than a standard hardship variance. Just some of the things to point out: the septic system, the on-site septic system is to the west side or the upper side of the structure, which would normally be where you think the garage would want to go, and that's why he can't put the garage there, if in fact he can put a garage on the lot at all. So that's why it's on the narrower side. As to why he prefers it to be detached, I don't know, but that's certainly something that can be, that's something that could be, I guess, dealt with under the building permit, as long as the board were to specify what setbacks they would, be amenable to. I think the more important thing, as I mentioned in my staff comments, is that you need to make sure that you go through the criteria for a practical difficulty variance, which is a little different than the standard variance, and make sure that you've asked the appropriate questions so that you can, come up with your finding of fact and conclusion of law. That's kind of where we're at.
Okay. There's no way to put that garage in the envelope?
There's
no
literally
envelope.
no envelope
Yeah.
that would, other than perhaps the smallest of sheds, could fit into. So it's again, I think you need to go down through your criteria and ask as many questions as you need to feel comfortable with the decision that you're going to arrive at.
Thank you. And I love your minutes, the notes that you provide are really helpful. Why don't I open up the public? Anybody wish to speak on this issue from the public? And we have no letters, no calls.
No letters, no calls.
All right, close the public hearing portion of the meeting. Come back to the board, quick overview questions, and then we'll get into the meat of the practical difficulty requirements. Any board comments, questions?
I have a question for Brian. Brian, does this come to any lot coverage issues?
No, not really, because the structure's pretty small.
Okay.
So he'd be okay. He's not limited to lot coverage, it's only building coverage, so he's okay with building coverage.
Okay.
I guess one other thing, the septic system that is there was a replacement system installed, I think, in 1991.
Yes.
It is it's an infiltrator system, which is the plastic chambers. So one of my first concerns when looking at this is he going to cover area that he would possibly need for a replacement system going forward, should this system ever fail? And the good news is that infiltrator system can actually be taken up and replaced in the same exact spot with a little scarification, new medium place, so it's actually should be gone.
Other questions, comments from the board?
I've got one comment that stems off your earlier question, Mr. Chairman. It looks like the chairman's comment about attaching the garage to the structure. Looks like and I'm looking for either you agree or don't agree with this statement, so if you slid it and attached it to the closest wall, you're still out of compliance on the back edge. Right now, it's at 6'11". It looks like it makes the back corner of the garage out of compliance at roughly 10 or 11 feet, so you're still needing to get a variance for about 4 or 5 feet.
Yes, that's true. And on the front as well.
That's if you hold that front 7.5 feet. Does that make sense?
That's okay. Other questions from the board, comments?
And it's an awfully small lot. There really is not a big buildable envelope to affect any change, so anything you do, you're kind of out of compliance.
My initial thoughts are the concept of saying in the envelope has been consistent with the board when a property like yours exists. I would struggle with the garage, but we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Just so you know immediately where kind of my head is. I really don't have much problem with somebody using their footprint in a non-conforming lot in that situation.
Okay.
Okay, but that's just to give you a fair shake on that. It is a practical difficulty variance, and the requirements for practical difficulty variance are on, let's see here. Page is that on here?
Page 30.
Close.
There we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just go through the items. What I'd like you to do is explain each one, okay, as best you can.
Okay.
And we'll then go from there. So the first is, the need for the variance is due to the unique circumstances of the property and not to the general conditions of the neighborhood.
Yeah, so the structure was built before you had zoning, and setbacks, so, in the size of the lot, it's a non-conforming lot that you could never sell or subdivide to this small level, so,
And but tied to that, it's the property itself, that you need to do something to the property. You're coming because the property is just, the building can't hold up anymore, right?
yeah, that's correct.
So it's really about, that's the issue.
It's a
at hand.
substandard structure, yes.
The granting of the variance will not produce an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood and will not have an unreasonably detrimental effect on either the use or fair market value of abutting properties.
Yeah, so, it's a 100-year-old structure. All my neighbors have more modern houses. There's some photos that follow this that show that. And it's, I call it the shack among houses. I look across at my neighbor's house, it's an architecturally designed house, and he looks across at my shack, so I think I would be doing all my neighbors a favor by tearing it down. And I'm sure everybody who drives by thinks the same thing, it should be torn down, so.
Okay,
And
thanks.
it improved the neighborhood greatly, so.
The practical difficulty is not the result of an action taken by the applicant or a prior owner. And it's
Yes.
just the fact that,
Yeah, and I've owned it 22 years, and the previous owner had it 50 years, and, I've never added on or changed the structure from the outside.
and no other feasible alternative is available to the applicant except a variance.
That's correct.
That would be true, and because of the circumstances of the lot. The granting of the variance will result in bringing the applicant's property more nearly into conformance with surrounding properties.
Yes, and if you turn to the next page in the write-up, you'll see, you have that. This photo here. So this is the house across the street from mine.
I don't know.
He's an architect. It's a really nice house.
Would be this one here.
This is my structure.
Yeah.
So the picture's worth 1,000 words. So
I like that.
These pictures.
Okay,
These were submitted to the town.
okay, thank you.
And then this is a house that was built in 1996. It's diagonally across the street, only with a two-car garage. So it shows us everybody. And then the house right to the west of me.
Thank you. And just so that people know, what he was doing was passing pictures around of documents we have already received, and we actually have in our plans. So just so that anybody that's watching
Yep.
questions it, and I think it's pretty straightforward. The house looks tired.
Yeah.
Okay. The next item is the granting of variance will not have any unreasonably adverse effect on natural environment.
There's an existing structure there with a septic that's been in since 1991. I have 4 kids, so that's been taxed pretty heavily over the years. So I don't think we can say that there's any negative impact of putting a 2-story structure on that property with the same number of bedrooms.
Could we come back on that question from the septic point of view? You said it was a plastic, that's a more modern system?
Yeah.
How many bedrooms does that designed to carry?
I did not look at the design, but you're not adding any bedrooms,
That's
correct? So it was designed for the structure that's there now, and he's not changing the number of bedrooms.
Okay, so basically you're just giving more living room, but not
Yes.
anymore. And have you had any problems with the septic system at all?
No, like a pump failure, but that's normal maintenance over 20 years.
You haven't walked in back and kind of got stuck?
Mhm.
That's important, okay. Is there any reason to worry about that issue with a,
Well, it's a concern because it's a 1991 system, and generally most septic systems are designed for about 25 to 30 years of use, and So it's at the back end of its use stage, but the good news, again, is that because it's a chamber system, the chambers themselves are the medium which the effluent clings to and creates the biomat and all the technical stuff that kills the bugs and makes everything nice. What they can do is take that system right out. You can actually wash the chambers out and reuse them or just replace them on the same footprint as before, once that's scarified, and then some new materials laid in. So it's going to be reusable in the same location, whereas a stone bed and pipe system would have to be relocated to a different part of the lot. He's got an exceptionally small lot. Thankfully, he's on public water, so he doesn't have to contend with setbacks as well from the septic system. So he just needs to preserve that area, and that area can never be built on or abutted with a structure. So that's why he's really constrained. There's a pressure sewer that goes by, so he can't connect into that. He's limited to an on-site septic system for the duration, and that's the only location where it exists, where it currently is. So, all things considered, it's got very limited environmental impact because he's able to contain it right there on that site, in that location.
Thank you. Actually, I didn't understand about the chamber system versus the piping.
There's a technology for every site now. Just a matter of money.
And just to let you know, we put an effort together with the neighbors to try to get into the sewer, and would have to run a private sewer line up the road to where the old store was, or the public parking lot right now, and then it would drain gravity down to Champion Street. But it would be at our cost with blasting involved. I don't think anybody at the table would agree to pay for that themselves either, so we declined.
If you get a good septic system.
Yeah. Well, we were looking at,
They've worked
it'd make it easier to get a variance in the past or a bigger building envelope, but in my case, I don't think it really matters.
Okay, thank you. And let's see, you're not in a flood zone, because that's why you're going through this process. So those are the questions that we've really come back to. What I'd like to also do is just remind the board in this section that we also have the dimensional standards and practical difficulty. The case for strict application of dimensional standards of the ordinance to the property for which the variance is sought would both preclude the use of property which is permitted in the zone. Just to repeat that. So I'm going to bring it back to the board for
Could I add a couple things?
Absolutely.
If you look at the property, I'm bordered on two sides by Piper Shores. So this would be, in the future, could be a paper street, or, and behind me, there's nothing for maybe a mile or so as far as structures.
Okay, what do you mean by a paper street? I'm sorry.
I've heard in the past that they may want to put an access road here into their neighborhood, the Piper Shores development.
So it's not a paper street on record right now.
That's correct.
It's just they might do something there eventually.
Yeah, but I mean, so as far as impacting my neighbors, Piper Shores is one neighbor that is on two sides. And the neighbor to the east owns the house across the street, Fred Poor, that has the architectural house. So, and he would be in agreement of me replacing my structure, so.
Great, thank you. Do you have a design that you've got for the structure yet?
Yes.
I didn't see that. Oh, no, I did. I'm sorry. I saw the garage.
Okay. And, on the dimensions for the structure, we went to the base foundation. I didn't include like soffit overhangs, but I don't know if soffit overhangs for the dimensions. Yeah, the dimensions on any of these drawings to the structure would be to the foundation.
The stated setbacks that you've mentioned
Yes.
to the foundation?
Yes.
Okay, I'd asked you to make those to the soffit, the overhangs, the closest part of the structure.
Oh, okay.
So you may have to, we're going to need to know exactly what those dimensions are going to be to the closest part of the structure.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
What's important
we talked about taking stairs out that were not in the envelope, if they were, but I didn't know about the soffit, so that's a miss.
The good news is that gives you a little bit extra to play with. You need soffits, so what he's saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is that if you went to the foundation and you're using that as your benchmark, you've probably taken away 1.5 feet of usable space if this were approved based on the footprint. Is that a fair statement? Am I misquoting you?
It would be at my
The
loss.
variance is going to hurt.
It's,
It's going to be, yeah.
he's going to
Larger.
ask for more of a variance in order to account for the soffits.
So the
the
numbers
amount of
are wrong.
variance he's asked for is going to be, the variance is going to be increased, the distance is going to be decreased, and it's up to you guys what you want to approve. The problem is, we have already prepared the description to list the dimensions that he showed on his plan, which are not the right dimensions.
Right.
That's why I stressed that several times, that we needed the closest part of the building, which is the soffit overhang.
Otherwise, the new application on the deed would be incorrect, right?
That's right.
The variance.
So you've got two choices. You can go with the stated, depends on what the board decides. If they deny your application, it's a moot point.
Yeah.
But if they approve your application with the dimensions you've listed, then you have to make your house smaller.
Yeah, I don't want to do
Because
that.
that's going to account for the.
You could
for the-
table
for
it
the
till
soffits.
next week.
Yeah, I mean,
Next
based
month.
on just those statements alone, to me, that says you probably have to go back,
Table it
revisit it,
till next
table
month
and
or
come
something.
back. Because we've tried in the past and learned our lessons to try and adjust things
Mhm.
for people, and it doesn't work. It needs to be done the right way, and the right way is to have it through the process, because we might give you 6 inches for a soffit when it's really 2 feet.
Yeah, okay.
We have no clue. So my advice would be that you ask for a tabling to replace it, and I'm sure we will grant that.
Okay.
So if, I'll move to table this item until the next.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, would it behoove the board to at least discuss while he's here how they feel about the garage? Because you've already made mention.
Sure.
You know, because if he's going to have to table and come back, he may need to rethink the garage issue as well. So he might, well, rather than to keep coming back, perhaps it would be good while we're here to talk about that aspect of the application.
And I think maybe going along with that process is, maybe we'll discuss the items as it sits, so that you'll know. I'm pretty confident that, knowing the history of the board, I'd be surprised if they didn't approve you building on the same site. But we'll let you hear anybody that might have an issue with that, so that you don't get surprised next time. I don't want to waste your time.
Okay.
So as far as I'm concerned, I don't have any problem with you building in the exact footprint, which would include the overhangs, and getting those properly corrected and doing that. Does any other board member want to comment on that issue specifically?
We're going to give them a preliminary going down through the numbers, through the questions.
We can, if you'd like. It's up to the board. I think we probably ought to wait,
Okay.
but just giving them just a temperature.
One thing I would like to discuss before we move on then is, question 4 is the hardest one to answer, which is no other feasible alternative is available to the applicant except for a variance. That would be potentially one of the stumbling blocks that could come up for you, because if board members didn't agree with having the garage there, they would say the alternative would be not to have the garage. So that would be something you would want to have an answer to, is whether the garage was important enough to you to keep or get rid of based on the response from the members of the board.
And I think the garage question was exactly what we were talking a little while ago. It's a non-conforming lot. Adding more non-conformity to it is inconsistent with what the board has typically done. I personally don't believe that you meet the requirements of that with the garage there. That's my opinion. That's only one person. And I don't know that I've ever voted for one like that. I don't know if other board members have strong opinions on that issue one way or the other, but feel free to speak it, because I think it is an important issue of whether he adds that or doesn't. Again, you can do whatever you like.
Okay.
And you can come back with whatever you like. But I'm just trying to give you a temperature as best I can.
Okay. I mean, just my theory behind the garage is that it meets a side setback. So who does it affect? On the front side, it affects the town. On the back side, it affects Piper Shores.
To the chairman's comment, what we've been consistent with doing is, we really have no problem with building within the footprint.
Yeah.
Now you're going outside of that footprint, and you're
Yeah.
also having a detached structure, not even attached to the current structure. So it's really creating two issues. I would probably agree with the chairman that I wouldn't be okay with the garage as it is.
Now, this is not your primary residence, correct?
It is.
It is?
It is now, yeah.
The need for a garage at a primary residence brings a different weight to me than it does either a second home or a camp or non-primary residence, so I need to talk about the feasibility. What other feasible options would be available for you with your vehicle for winter conditions? And I need you to exhaust that to the point that I felt comfortable that there would be no other alternative.
Okay.
Any other board comments? Staff? Okay, I'll move to table. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? And it's unanimous.
Thank you.
When you come back, you can bring it back any way you'd like. We can separate the garage off if we vote that way and vote for one and not the other, so don't worry about that.
Yeah, okay.
And I'd just be really careful with your measurements because you can really hurt yourself. And I commend the code enforcement officer because had we voted for this with those numbers and you started building, one of two things would have happened. They would have caught it after you started and you would have had to change it. Or you would end up with a smaller bit. So he did you a great favor by giving you the heads up.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay?
Yeah, it's such a small structure that I really couldn't take off another couple feet off the
Sometimes
width.
it's not a bad idea to have a professional do the markings for you, and I would recommend that. It wouldn't cost you that much to have an engineer go out and measure for you.
And that would be the same for the garage, too.
Okay.
Not on, practical difficulty doesn't require that, but I would recommend it. It gives more credence to the numbers.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Would you like us to hang on to our information for the next meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Together. Very much. Okay, that is, this is,
Yeah.
and Ms. Bartlett, is that your address? Could you do us a favor, take the microphone, introduce yourself, tell us where you live, and what you're trying to accomplish, and we'll go from there, okay?
Okay. Hi, my name is Kath Bartlett. Can you hear me? And I have an office, and I'm an acupuncturist, and I opened an office over in Oak Hill on Oak Hill Terrace, which is here. And the landlord won't give me business signage, so the issue is new patients trying to find me. With the medical office, there's a constant stream of new patients, and they need to be able to find the office, and it's difficult for them. And so what I applied and gotten a permit for was 2 signs on Route 1. I'm on Oak Hill Terrace, which is by the post office. You all kind of know the neighborhood, right? It's back onto the post office. So there's a couple of issues. That's the street there is called Oak Hill Terrace, but it looks like you turn into the parking lot. And so that right there is confusing. And then, so I asked for the 2 signs on Route 1, so you're going on Route 1 from either direction to show that you turn onto Gorham Road. And I got the approval for that sign permit. And so then I took the application to the state, and the state sent it back. And he said that I couldn't have the sign approval because having 2 signs on Route 1 and pointing over to Gorham Road, and then the patients don't know where to turn from there. So the next turn then is, as I said, onto that Oak Hill Terrace, which looks like you're turning into the parking lot. It doesn't even look like a street. And so he said that I needed another sign there, directional sign. I'm talking about those blue directional signs. So I needed another directional sign there so they know where the turn is to Oak Hill Terrace, because he couldn't shoot them from Route 1 down Gorham Road and then not give them another sign for where the next turn is. So I need a, I guess, a permit because I guess the statute says that I can have 2 signs, but if I get, and I can have up to 4, but if I need an additional 2, I need to go through the board to get, is it a variance or what have you. So it makes sense to me as long, he's requiring me to get the one that when you make the turn from Gorham Road and then you turn into the parking lot to have one sign there so you know. But these same issues, you're coming up from Hages Road off Gorham Road and then you need to make the turn. Again, it looks like you're turning in the parking lot, the address is a road, it's confusing, it kind of makes sense, you get up to 4 signs, if I could put the one go in the one direction, to put the other one, on the high school side, and so they know. I've got, if it's a little bit confusing about what I'm talking about, it's in here, we've got pictures showing where we want the signs to be, but they're on Gorham Road. So the first one is because the state is saying that I can't have the ones that I've already got a permit for on Route 1. I can't have those unless I have something on Gorham Road showing that you turn into the parking lot. And then the other is if you're coming the other direction, so there would be one too, so it's just really clear where the office is.
Now, do you have something from the state that actually spells that out?
Yeah, I'm sorry that you don't have it in your packet, but
That's what you handed us on.
yeah, after I turned in the application, made all the copies, I got the email in from Daniel Loring, who's with the state, it's the OBDS and traffic sign technician. He's the one that makes the calls and approves the state permit. And so he's going through and giving you the statutes here on why I need that sign.
Okay, and the 2 signs that you, is it okay to ask questions?
Feel free, feel free.
Mr. Chair, before we go too far into this, I just wanted to make it aware that Ms. Bartlett's a client of my firm in Scarborough.
Oh,
but that
thank you.
doesn't preclude me from-
Do you have any,
No, I don't handle her case.
okay. No, anybody have any problem with that?
No.
So, no. Thank you. Thank you for disclosure.
Yep.
Go ahead, continue.
So the 2 signs that have been previously approved,
Yes,
are those both on Gorham Road, pointing them into your,
those are on Route 1.
Okay.
And that was where the problem was.
okay, so that gets them going down Gorham Road.
Yeah, that shows them where to turn when they're on Route 1, where to make the first turn, but this is what the state is saying, is you need the second sign so they know to turn into Oak Hill Terrace and where Oak Hill Terrace is.
Is everybody
Yeah.
familiar with where that is? Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
So
then,
you'd be coming for us to approve the 2 signs that would be located near the high school to turn you onto the terrace.
right,
One
so
as you're traveling south on Gorham Road, and one as you're traveling north on Gorham Road.
exactly.
And this is not attaching to an existing signpost, but rather a new signpost?
I'm not sure, I don't decide where the sign goes. It's either the state or it's the town of Scarborough. And my understanding is if there's already another sign post there with signs, they oftentimes end up there. But it's either you all that makes that decision, I'm sorry, I'm from North Carolina, and or the state. I'm not quite sure, but one of you will decide where the post
You'll be able to
goes.
tell me in a half a second.
Okay.
Is that?
Mr. Chairman, the state, the Maine Department of Transportation is responsible for erecting the post and the sign, so they'll make the determination as to exactly where it goes. They have their own criteria on locating those as well as minimum clearance from the travel surface up to the bottom of the first sign.
As well as the size of the sign?
Yeah, that's already been specified. I think she's going to have the reflectorized
Yes.
sign, so there's certain dimensions to that. Our ordinance just says that if they're allowed 4 signs, two they can have if they meet the A through J criteria that's specified under miscellaneous appeals. So that's what we're looking at. Yes, DOT will set the signs. She's responsible for having the signs made. They provide a list of certified sign makers that know the standards and will make the signs for her. She supplies those to DOT. They erect them to their standards.
Mr. Longstaff,
Yes.
I know you and I have had this discussion in the past.
I don't want to have any more discussions with you.
There's
I'm sorry,
nothing,
time's up.
there's nothing in Scarborough that would prevent her from doing what the state's doing from the Scarborough sign ordinance, because I know.
No, yes, that's correct. Because her business does not front on US Route 1. If it fronted on US Route 1, she would not be allowed to have any official business directory signs. but because her business does not front on US Route 1, she can direct traffic to her business. It's just the quirk of the situation that her business is so close to US Route 1, they don't hardly have time to make the turn before they're going to see the next sign that directs them into Oak Hill Terrace, or Oak Hill Terrace.
Oak Hill Terrace.
Okay, and I'm assuming that means the building footprint, the entire building doesn't, the land itself doesn't abut, as opposed to just her business.
It's her, yeah, she's a tenant in that business.
And that business doesn't have
No,
any...
it's separated by the street. It's on Oak Hill Terrace. It's not on US Route 1.
Okay.
That's the issue.
Does the town have any problems with the addition of signs like that, or do we have a position?
Obviously, we'd like to have as minimal amount of signs as we can, but they do have, businesses have the right to have these official business directory signs as long as they meet standards of the ordinance and they're erected according to DOT standards. We really don't have a say in that. We don't have any objection.
Do we have the ability to, my concern is having a sign for one company being erected as opposed to having a sign put on a post that already exists. Do we have any authority to manage that issue, or is that out of our scope?
No, because these are official business directory signs regulated by the state.
And so if she...
This is a state aid highway or a state maintained highway.
So
Mr.
if-
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I might be able to answer that a little bit.
Go ahead.
Because we checked on it, because we're technically on Route 1. So we were checking on the sign for turning in for us with the state, and what we were kind of told was the state makes every effort that it can, as long as there are not more than 3 on a post, they make every effort they can to put it on an existing post for a sign that's already there. I know you had said that there's some that are already there.
Yeah.
So I was told that they'll make every effort. They don't want to go and dig the post hole and stuff like that. They do want to try to put it on.
And if I get this correctly, if we don't grant this third sign, she can't get the other 2.
She can't get the other 2.
So it's really that's really what we're coming down to.
The email that I handed out cites state statute that governs how they regulate those signs, and that's why they had to deny the permit for the 2 signs at Route 1. Their fear is if they're directing traffic down Route 114, they're not going to see where Oak Hill Terrace is because it's so quick there, and I don't even know that it's an eighth of a mile.
Well, and also, it doesn't look like a street. It's the parking lot, and
So they're sending people off on a wild goose chase down 114, adding to the congestion of 114, adding to the confusion of the motoring public that are looking for that particular business. Granted, with today's technology and navigation units and stuff, you're probably not as likely to be lost for long as we might have
You
10,
haven't used my
15 years
GPS.
ago.
but some people don't have GPSs. I treat seniors.
So they're regulated under these particular conditions in their statute. And so the whole goal is, if we're going to direct them onto 114 and the business is on another street off 114, we have to direct them onto that street as well. And then they're on their way to that business location. I think Ms. Bartlett's point is that if she's allowed, that would be the third sign. If she's allowed 4, she might as well put one for the eastbound traffic on 114 to direct them into, because not all traffic is going to be coming in on Route 1 to see those signs. So if somebody's coming, for example, from Gorham or from Standish to her business, they're going to see the sign on 114 from the eastbound side.
And that doesn't set up a situation where everybody's going to be barging in wanting their signs there too, because it's limited to the...
Again, DOT won't approve, if it becomes too cluttered by their standards, they can't approve the signs either. So it's a first come, first served basis. If you're late to the party, you don't get a sign.
And it is very difficult to get it through the town if you have any type of frontal space facing Route 1, because we dealt with that. Even though our entrance is off of Route 1, we're technically listed as Route 1 for our business. So there's 2 things. The state highly regulates it, and the town does too.
And the only other question I had on that issue, directed towards you, sir, is it doesn't appear we have a definition of a directional sign that meets the state definition. Is that in our sign ordinance?
We do have directional signs. This is a different animal.
But it's a different directional sign.
It's a different directional sign.
So I just want to clarify that.
This is a state thing, not a town thing.
Okay. And I did understand, just wanted to get it on the record, so thank you.
And one more question for the code enforcement group. Since these are directional signs, if she gets the 4 signs approved, does that affect whether she can have an advertising sign for her business on the face of the structure?
No.
Okay, so it's different type of sign?
Completely different, yeah.
Okay.
Different category.
Good.
And I don't know if this matters to you or not, but my landlord won't allow me to put a sign up. I mean, I
Will or will not?
will not.
Okay.
So I can't put like and if I could, my building is like way set back. I mean, it's not on, the building is not on Gorham Road or Route 1, it's way set back,
Is there anything on the building that identifies where you are?
I have like a little tiny sign plate that once you're at the door, it says my sign. They're trying to keep it nice. I guess they've had problems with people doing tacky things and,
Don't want to go to all the effort of getting traffic there and then not being able to find your door.
Oh, there's a little, it says, 7 Oak Hill Terrace, and then it's got, on the building, it's got a little plaque that lists all the businesses that are in that particular building. Yeah.
Is that on the inside or outside? That's on the
On the outside, there's one on the outside, one in the lobby, yeah.
And just for clarification, in Section D of the miscellaneous appeals, is to permit additional directional signs as prescribed by Section 12 of this ordinance, which I believe is the trigger that allows us to bring this to the next questions. Is that a fair statement? So then we go to special exceptions. And that is on page, gotta learn my new pages.
Special exception.
It's section 12I5.
Page 21.
Section
So, I've got section 4.4.
The-
Same
no,
ones,
It's not a special exception.
that's miscellaneous.
It says to permit additional directional signs as prescribed in section 12 of this ordinance.
Right, that refers back to,
No, it does not.
it doesn't.
No. Go to section 12 of the ordinance. 12I.
Thank you.
5.
No, let's check
I
here.
think you said 12. Oh, wait.
12 right here. 125.
I, okay. Here, and then, okay. Section 5. Thank you very much. All right. Which does match with what she has on her list here, too. So it doesn't fall into special exception at all. It's going to fall into the code of the sign ordinance. So why don't we go through, well, before I do that, do we have any letters or phone calls on this issue? And I'll open the public hearing. Anybody wish to speak on it? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing part of the meeting. Let's come back, and what we'll do is, we're going to ask you these questions. You've already written them down, but we need them on the public record. If you'd like, just answer them as we go through it.
Okay.
All right? So the demonstrated need for adequate visibility of the sign to two-directional traffic.
Okay, can you help me out here? Can you tell me where we are in the paperwork?
So you're actually on, your section, page 4 is where you're
Okay.
looking.
Chairman, if I could, it says that the zoning board can rule favorably on an appeal pursuant to section 5 of the ordinance and based upon any of the following criteria. And she has picked criterion E, excessive number of turns or confusing route on local roads, as the criteria that she's basing this under. So we don't
Okay.
need to cover all the
Oh,
other
good.
ones.
I've never used this.
Yeah, I know.
I've never been in this.
We're treading into new ground here.
To me, it's brand new. Thank you.
Rookie.
So we only have to look at the excessive number of turns or confusing routes is the criteria that she's applying under.
And we don't have to deal with a special exception.
No,
So it comes right off the table. So it's just a dialogue.
Yep.
All right, good. Well, based on the testimony of the code enforcement officer, I feel pretty comfortable about this.
We don't have to go through any of the numbers at all in I?
I think we just have to decide whether or not, she's asked for 4, correct? You've asked for 4.
Well, I've already gotten the permit for the first 2 on the Route 1, so what I'm here for is to get the permit to get the second 2 on Gorham Road.
Mr. Crockett brings up a good point. You can go through the 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5E. That's perfectly fine to do that. I just was trying to head you off from having to go through the whole A
Okay, thank you.
through J criteria under 5. But yeah, you should at least ask the questions for 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's pretty self-evident, but.
Okay, why don't we just do that then? So this says, I'll paraphrase here if best I can. Whenever any eligible business establishment, as defined above, applies for an official business directional sign, the following conditions must be met. So the first thing I'd like to do is get an opinion as to whether or not she meets that first criteria for the record. So if I could just start down, our end down there. Yeah, absolutely think she meets that criteria.
And I would agree it certainly meets the criteria for that. So I think that's the first step we have to get through.
I agree as well. The close proximity to Route 1 and the number of turns required make it complicated.
I would agree.
Okay, but just on the record, just state what your position is on that.
I agree with the other two board members.
For the reason that it meets. And there's two reasons why I feel it meets it. Number one, the state has established
Proved
that.
it, right.
And the ordinance applies to that. So that gets us the right to be here, number one on that subject.
Mhm.
So now we'll go through with comply with the Maine Department of Transportation regulations for the installation of official business signs, except as otherwise specified above. There is nothing that matters above. The state's going to make those determinations, whatever we think.
Well, and you can refer to the application for the sign dimensions.
And that's just the standard,
Yeah, that's in the packet, that's the standard form.
been around forever.
She's proposing 12 by 48 signs, I think, in all cases. And it says shall not exceed 16 by 72.
Great, okay. What's the standard in Scarborough? It seems so, that seems larger than the ones I'm used to seeing in Scarborough. But I've never gone out and measured one.
Well, again, we specify that they can't be larger than 16 by 72, and DOT can allow up to 20 inch by 84 inch. They have like three standard sizes there.
It's usually based on speed on the road that you're on.
As I was told you.
I don't know how they
And I'm
base it, but
thinking
that's-
12 by
sounds
48
good.
doesn't exceed, is not excessive.
Okay. The only thing I was wondering about is being consistent with the other signs in the town that are directional signs from the state.
When we looked at them, that was, the 12 by 48 was the norm.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, the state, I believe the state determines the size. That's another thing the state will decide, the size of the sign.
I don't know about that, but I think...
I believe that's the case.
Last sign will be determined by DOT. Okay, very good, thank you.
But the application does show 12 by 48.
And that's what
Okay,
you're asking for,
thank
it's
you.
12 by 48.
Yes.
The off-premises official business directional signs shall not be located within the Higas Parkway right-of-way between Payne Road and Route 1.
What question is that, 3?
3. I don't think,
She's
and that's
Right.
not the case with
Right.
that. And business establishments undertaken and permitted pursuant to the provisions for home occupation shall not be permitted directional signs. That's
Okay,
not
this
the
is
case.
home occupation. Right.
And I don't know if anything else applies here or not. The H is interesting, I'll just state it for the record. The board shall deny the application for added signs if it finds that their function is one of advertising to attract customers rather than to direct individuals seeking business. And to be candid with you, that's kind of my issue with two issues. Number one is the size, and the other is, are they going to be standalone?
But you got to go back to G.
Which is,
Primary consideration shall be to assist customers seeking the specific business location.
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. Yeah, it's kind of, it's an interesting
Yeah.
juxtaposition.
Can I make a comment on the size?
Sure.
Yeah, I was looking here on the paperwork. It looks like my first sign is to be 16 by 22, or that's the max. I think that's what I've got a permit for. On one of these pages here, it shows the original permit that I've gotten for the first two signs on Route 1. It's kind of on the last page of the packet, I believe, or the second to last page.
Just to clarify,
Those are
You have
different.
two permits. You have two permit applications, excuse me. And the one that's dated, the one that's approved by the state, no, it's not approved by the state.
Yeah, I see the one that was signed
You
by
have,
the state, it's circled on here that the sign is to be 16 by 72. And I think that that must have come from the state, I believe.
yeah, I said max size is 16 by 72.
I see.
That's not the specified size. The permit that I see is this one, Kath.
Oh, okay,
This one says 12 by 48. It has the black face, the dark face.
okay.
That's the one I was going on.
We started this process so long ago. I think we started last July.
I don't even know who, oh, this is your signature, right?
Yeah, that's me.
You see a date on here?
So that's the one you submitted.
Okay.
This one has the date right here. Those
So that's the one we're voting on, the 12 by
No, that's the one I've already got a permit for.
Yeah.
And that's the one that got held up until I get the second permit for the two signs for Gorham Road.
The second permit doesn't actually specify a sign size.
Okay.
Why is
This is
that?
why I think,
I guess we were thinking that the state was going to decide, because it says on the application that the size of the sign will be determined by the state.
I would imagine that's probably true, but I would also think home rule would apply to some
Well,
degree.
again, we can't approve anything more than a 16 by 72,
Okay.
and that's going to, I think, the condition that the board's going to put on. It's in the ordinance, so you're backed up.
Right. Good, and can we, I would think home rule will allow us to be able to say we want the size that's the
Yeah.
small size.
Yeah.
And I would fall back, and just so you know where I'm coming from, I would fall back on age, which was one of the reasons I brought it up, is it, in my opinion, needs to be consistent with the signs that are already here. I'll take the board's word for it, because I've never gone out and measured it. And the 12 by, what is it, 12 by 48 that we're talking about in this case here, what is the plan that was proposed here?
Right here, if I can, I'll put this in record so that it's out here. The two permits have two different dates on them. One of them is July 30th, 2014, and that was for the 12 by 48. And then at a later date, on 8/12/2014, this is through the zoning administrator, so that was Mr. Longstaff, I believe, it was for 16 by 72.
I think,
That's
is that the
max.
case, or you just stated the max size per ordinance?
Right.
The difference being, this is our local sign permit, this page, this is the state sign permit.
Right.
And so this one, this is what the state sent back, and this is what I have to sign off.
So the state's going to allow a 16 by 72.
I believe, and I don't know this, but I believe we can say you can do the four signs, but 12 by 24 is what we expect.
12 by 48.
12 by 48, I'm sorry,
Can
On,
you do
on,
this?
on the additional two signs, Mr. Chair?
on all the signs, the four.
I don't know if you can overrule the state on
I
that.
think home rule allows us, but go ahead.
Well, I'd have to check it. Again, I will say this one more time.
I wish you would.
Listen carefully. 16 by 72 is the maximum sign that our ordinance allows. If the board chooses, they can approve the four signs based on that maximum sign size, and also put the condition that it be the smallest sign size that DOT will approve. Okay? So even though 16 by 72 is the maximum, we want the smallest sign size that MDOT will approve. I can go verify the other signs in that location to see what they all measure, and that's what, I'm sure Kath would be happy with that.
Sure, I mean, whatever, I would just
It's
like,
four signs.
I need the signs, and I also need people to see them. Those ones on Route 1, there's so much going on there, and
Well,
I
that's
want people
my
to see the
concern.
signs.
One of my concerns is we're adding to that. With these four signs, we're adding to that chaos.
Yeah, well, I've already got the permit for those, so I'm just trying
Okay,
to,
but I just wanted to understand why
I see,
why
yeah.
I'm talking the way I'm talking. And
Okay,
I think, Mr. Longstaff, you put it perfectly comfortable to me, which is we want the size that is consistent with,
So I think in
Yeah.
your decision, if you so choose, you can rely on the maximum sign size allowed by our ordinance, not the maximum sign size allowed by DOT. They can go bigger, but ours says you can't go bigger than 16 inches by 72 inches. That is our safety net, and you can put the condition in there that you would only allow the smallest sign size that MDOT will put out.
Which is basically,
Hopefully, that's a 12 by 40.
our ordinance basically is the home rule point.
It is, but again, you want it to be consistent, so if the other signs are something other than 12 by 40,
You want it to match.
you don't want to penalize her.
Correct.
And make her have a smaller sign size than what the.
Absolutely,
standard
that's
is.
exactly
So,
it.
if you would put put the onus on me to verify what those signs generally are out at both the intersection, the intersection at Route 1, and then down across from the school by the Oak Hill Terrace, I'll work with Kat.
Thank you.
Kat to put the right numbers together, and we'll contact DOT and find out what we can do.
So if I'll throw a motion out, and if anybody wants to help me through it, that'd be great. So I move that we approve appeal number, what is it, I'm sorry?
2540.
2540, is it 25? It's appeal number 2540, which is a miscellaneous appeal by Kathleen Barrett for Barrett Acupuncture for the requested signs that allow for up to the 4,
Thank you.
with the codicil that the code enforcement officer will communicate with the state to ensure that, to the best of his ability, that it is consistent with the current signage in the
Fair.
area.
Sounds fair.
I have a
But that's
question.
perfect, I think.
Does that work for everybody?
I got
That
a
works for
question.
me.
Yes, sir.
The application for miscellaneous appeal, she already describes 2 additional DOT signs. Can we actually put a condition on all 4? I mean, it says 2 here.
Technically, she hasn't been approved for any signs.
I see.
Because they won't approve the 2 out
Until
of
we
US
do.
Route 1 without at least the 3rd one on the Gorham Road. So yeah, I mean, we can make them all consistent.
Okay.
I just want to raise the issue while we're putting all these conditions on it, that according to the photograph, which I think is Google Earth, maybe Street View photograph that you provided, there doesn't appear to be any
Yeah.
OBDS signs out there right now on Gorham Road. So it may end up being 2 different sizes depending on factors. But again,
Yep.
that overarching limit on 16 by 72 is what we're hanging our hat on, and we'll try to get whatever is appropriate and consistent, either on the ground or with DOT's regulations, which I have to admit, I'm not fluent in their regulations, but I think we can work with them to get something that works for the town and for the applicant.
And you obviously know what the board wants, or at least, I think,
And
am I
get
speaking for the
sense,
board or
yes,
am I?
you want the minimum size that works.
Correct. It's consistent with.
That's consistent.
Now, I've got a motion out there, but don't have a second. Anybody wish to second my motion?
I will second.
Okay, let's go back to discussion on the motion. Any discussion on the motion as proposed?
No, the only thing I had was basically for the zoning officer. I think they're all pretty consistent out there now anyway, so you're not going to have a lot of trouble going to find
That's
a
what I think, too.
consistency. I don't think there's any 16 by 72s myself, but they all look like they're pretty consistent in size.
I'll get my handy dandy tape measure out.
Yeah, you're going to need your boots and a ladder maybe too.
My snowshoes.
And again, I would reference in my, I'd like to actually make a friendly adjustment to the motion, which was, just for clarification's sake, I'm referencing section H of section 12IH as the logic I'm using for why,
That's 5H.
5H, I'm sorry, I5H, 12I5H as the reference point of where our right to be able to have some control, which whatever that might be, we'll find out, I guess. And would you be okay with that amendment being
I'm
added?
fine.
Yes.
Okay, so any discussion on the amendment?
No further discussion.
All in favor on the amendment as, okay, and then all in favor of the actual amendment, of the approval of the
Application.
application? That's unanimous.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Good luck. I might need some microphone chair to...
Okay. We don't know where to go.
I don't know, I can't find the sign.
You can get the signs up.
You're not going to find many signs right now.
Okay. I apologize for the kind of the rough, that's all of it, right?
Yes.
That's-
No, I think we're good.
So,
Yeah, I'm doing it right now. I just had a question.
okay, so we got the signatures coming down. Okay. So, comments from the board, or comments from Mr. Longstaff, any comments for tonight? Board comments? Yes, sir.
I would just like to recognize Mr. Dillon, who was on our board. His mom passed away this week, Kay Dillon, who was a vital member of the community, and she was a loyal high school employee at Scarborough High School, where a lot of us went. So we just wanted to wish our condolences to the Dillon family for the loss of Mrs. Dillon.
Our blessings are with the Dillons.
Yep.
Thank you very much for bringing that up. Any other comments from the board? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? Seconded down that end. All in favor?
I don't
It's
know.
unanimous.
Yeah, you were voting.
On the motion to adjourn, all in favor? Unanimous. We are adjourned. Thank you very much. And we all learned a new...
Hey, look, I was just giving you a hard time.
You so can have a